freedom of mind is the real freedom. A person, whose mind is not free though he may not be in chains, is a slave, not a free man. One, whose mind is not free, though he may not be in prison, is a prisoner and not a free man. One whose mind is not free though alive, is no better than dead. Freedom of mind is the proof of one's existence. We must break the chains, once and forever. Life of Babasaheb Ambedkar. Babasaheb was born in a caste that was and is still considered lowest of the low. People used to say it was a sin to be born in this low caste. They would not offer him water, and say that if he sat in a cart it would become polluted. But this man framed the Constitution of India. His entire life was one of struggles and his personal life was so sad, he lost his first wife and sons. Even then he did not lose his willingness to work for the social welfare of the people of India. The boy who suffered bitter humiliation in the hands of upper caste people became the first law minister in free India, and shaped the country's constitution. Dr. Ambedkar ji is always portrayed only as a leader of SC/ST, and much of his work apart from enlistment of socially, economically backward communities are not taught through schoolbooks or any other credible source. The ink dries from the pens of upper caste media when writing/publishing anything about Dr. Ambedkar. Dr. Ambedkar's contribution to Indian society is much more than what is usually circulated. His other major contributions in diverse fields are rarely articulated. His role in the establishment of Reserve Bank of India, RBI, reformation of Hindu social order, issue of Pakistan, labor policy, electricity and water policy, Damodar Valley Project, Hirikund Project, the Son River Valley Project, and post-war economic plan, Second World War, etc. are little known to people. Babasaheb Ambedkar ji and post-war economic planning. When Second World War ended, there were many challenges for India, such as re-establishing the economy, including improvement in agriculture, development of industries, rehabilitation and redeployment of defense services, etc. For this, the Reconstruction Committee of Council, RCC, was established. Dr. Ambedkar ji was a member of RCC and was assigned the role of the President of Policy Committee for Irrigation and Power. Of great significance but less well known among Babasaheb Ambedkar's contribution to the nation was his direct participation in the formulation of objective and strategy of post-war economic plan and planned development of water and electric power resources in the country. Dr. Ambedkar ji was directly involved in framing of the objective and strategy of economic planning and water and electric power policy as a cabinet member in charge of the labor, irrigation and power portfolio during 1942–46. Though he made a substantial contribution to the economic planning and water and electric power resource development in this position, surprisingly, this aspect of his contribution has hardly been studied. Babasaheb's role in Damodar Valley, Hirikund, and the Son River Valley projects. If you ask any school-going child, where Damodar Valley, Hirikund, and the Son River Valley projects are, and who inaugurated these projects, they'll tell you the names of Nehru Gandhi family, although they have nothing to do with these projects. We have been taught in schools about these projects, but we don't find a word about Dr. Ambedkar's prominent role and contribution towards all these projects. Why weren't we told? Since 1930, emphasis has been increasingly placed on engineering practices, on the hydrological unity of a river basin, on treating the basin as the unit of development of its water resources. Credit for multipurpose project, irrigation and generating electric power together, goes to Irrigation and Power Department, under the leadership of Dr. Ambedkar. Keeping in view the enhanced magnitude of such projects, it was keenly felt that the technical expert bodies available then at the center weren't adequate. Dr. Ambedkar ji approved the Central Waterway and Irrigation Commission, CWINC, in March 1944, and subsequently by the Viceroy on April 4, 1945. Thus Dr. Ambedkar ji helped build a strong technical organization for the development of India. If our houses are illuminated and if our fields are green, it's because of Dr. Ambedkar's stellar role in the planning of these projects, on which rests a major part of India's economy today. If there is such a concept as water management and development in India, then the credit goes to Dr. Ambedkar ji for ably using the natural resources to serve India. If it was not for Dr. Ambedkar's vision, one can imagine the situation of electric supply, irrigation and development of India. Babasaheb Ambedkar ji and India's water policy and electric power planning. almost everyone ignores the role of Dr. Ambedkar ji as a labor leader. Department of Labor was established in the year November 1937 and Dr. Ambedkar ji took over the labor portfolio in July 1942. The policy formulation and planning for the development of irrigation and electric power was the major concern. It was the Labor Department under the guidance of Dr. Ambedkar, who decided to establish Central Technical Power Board, CTPB, for power system development, hydropower station sites, hydroelectric surveys, analyzing problems of electricity generation and thermal power station investigation. Dr. Ambedkar ji emphasized on the significance and need for the grid system, which is still working successfully even today. If today power engineers are going abroad for training, the credit goes to Dr. Ambedkar ji again, who as a leader of Labor Department formulated policy to train the best engineers overseas. It is a matter of shame that nobody credits Dr. Ambedkar ji for the role he played in India's water policy and electric power planning. His role in the formation of Reserve Bank of India. Did you know Reserve Bank of India, RBI, came into picture according to the guidelines laid down by Dr. Ambedkar? RBI was conceptualized as per the guidelines, working style and outlook presented by Dr. Ambedkar ji in front of the Hilton Young Commission. When this commission came to India under the name of Royal Commission on Indian Currency and Finance, each and every member of this commission were holding Dr. Ambedkar's book named The Problem of the Rupee, Its Origin and Its Solution. Now, walking through the streets of India, on most of the State Bank of India's, SBI's, street hoardings it shows Rabindranath Tagore as the banker to this nation, as if Rabindranath Tagore is the brand ambassador of SBI. What hurts many of us is the picture of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi on the Indian currency. We need to ask everyone what's the contribution of these two leaders, Rabindranath Tagore and Mr. Gandhi, towards Indian currency, finance and economics, and who deserves to be there on the signposts or on Indian currency. And have you ever noticed the language panel displayed on Indian rupee banknotes? Sanskrit language is there but not Pali language. Does RBI have any answers? 1st April is the day when RBI celebrates its Foundation Day, making April Fools of common masses. Do you know of the role played by Dr. Ambedkar ji to raise caste issue at the international level? Dalit leaders and Afro-American leaders since 19th century started drawing connections between Dalits of India and blacks of USA. In 1945-46 when League of Nations was preparing for the formal establishment of United Nations, UN, there were many marginalized groups from different parts of the world who were trying to submit memorandums, so that their concerns also gets reflected in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. At that time there was an exchange of letters between Dr. B.R. Ambedkar ji and the prominent Afro-American thinker William Edward Burghardt Du Bois. In his book The Correspondence of W.E.B. Du Bois, Volume 3, W.E.B. Du Bois writes, "The necessity of a document of this sort is emphasized by the fact that other groups of people, notably from Indians of South Africa, the Jews of Palestine, the Indonesians and others are making similar petitions. I have on my desk a letter from Ambedkar ji of the Untouchables of India, in which he intimates that they may make an appeal." Dr. Ambedkar ji was well aware of the black movement as many of his professors/guides were from the black community, like Herbert Apthekar and C. Vaughan Woodward, and Dr. Ambedkar ji knew that to some extent Indian Dalits are similar to blacks of America, segregated, denied right to education, deprived of religious and political power. Dr. Ambedkar ji knew if all discriminated communities come together they can improve their status in society. Also he knew how to bring together all the discriminated communities and pressurize leaders at UN to take concrete steps towards the emancipation of discriminated communities.